Project Blunderhawk.
Hi friends, and welcome to episode 5 of Project Blunderhawk. We're moving along quite nicely now. Got the majority of the hard work done, I believe. We last time we spoke, on last episode we had drilled the holes on each side and lined these up quite nicely for the beginning of the pinning of the wings, and then we have since then I bought some long 3mm drill bits which can go all the way through to the other side, and I temporarily glued the wing on to keep it in place, just to get the markings for the holes for the wing. And now we're in a place where these fit in quite well. Actually, bear me a second, I'm just going to move. I'm going to set up a stationary camera for this video. Okay, probably should do this at the beginning of the videos, but sorry about that. So now we've got our static camera. I can free hands to show you that we have now got the holes in the correct place, and you can see that the wing fits in perfectly. I'm not going to push it into place because they need to secure these rods in there, and sometimes they've pushed them out of position. They're glued in at the moment, but only lightly. But you can see that the wing fits on perfectly. There will be a third rod eventually going down into, so these rods come out straight. There'll be a third rod going down, and the angle between the third rod that comes through this gap will act as another way to hold the wings in place. But with these two rods and with 3 rods and the glue, I think it's going to be fine. One of the problems with this model is if you try to glue it alone, the only contact spaces tend to be here, because there's a little bit of a bend between these two surfaces when you put them together, so it's not going to be a very strong hold. So I would recommend some kind of pinning. At the end of all these videos, I'll go through the different materials that I bought and how to get hold of them if you want to copy this video. But that's where we got to with the wings. They both fit on perfectly. If I push them on without glue, it holds these 2 pins, they hold in place very strongly. But their third rod is going to be like a final thing to sort of give it that extra hold on there. So one thing I do have to do, these rods are quite loose at the moment with the glue, so I need to put some more glue in there. And I've got some washers still on the inside, which I'm going to glue into place as well, and hopefully that will add some hold as well. But once they're glued on both ends, it won't be a big problem. So that's one of the bigger jobs, pretty much complete in advance of like the fitting of the model together. The second thing I did this week was this. I don't know if you remember that this doorway had a larger gap on one side where it wasn't fitting properly. I'd bent it quite a bit further back into position before. I also did some bending on this. You can see that there is a little bend on this side, and it seems to always, I've bent it a few times now, but it seems to be bending back. There's a little bit of banana-ing on this side. I might just have to do one last sort of I may have to put some pressure on this thing to push it more straight. But one of the biggest issues was that on this hole here, this bit was, they had a gap here of a couple of millimeters on each side. One of the ways that I actually fixed this was with with another session of hot water bending, and then I strapped some rubber bands around this part and left it overnight, and that seems to have done the trick. So you can see now it's a quite good fit for the door. It's probably too much of a good fit. I'll probably need to file down some of the door, to make sure that there's enough space for paint to get in, because obviously when you paint this, it's going to make it even more tighter fit. But you know, it's good that it's that the actual overall the overall resin piece is now in place, and it seems to be seems to be very good. And just rubber bands actually did the trick in the end to hold it in position overnight. There's a little, you know, it's never going to be perfect, let's just say that. But yeah, it's might need to just do a little bit of work on this banana-ing here, because this side is a lot straighter than this side. But I think it will, I don't think it's going to be noticeable if I just leave that. And I think that this does fit together with the other part of the model quite well. So I think we're all good there. The third thing that I did this week was the probably most difficult part of the project, the bit that I've been dreading to do a bit, and it's to work on the flight stand. You don't have to put a flight stand on this model. You know, it's entirely up to you. So yeah, this is probably the scariest part of the whole project, is to drill a hole where there wasn't an intentional hole on the model event. The person that I've seen on timeline, Leaky Cheese, he uses it puts it into this part, which goes onto the belly, which is the engine that goes onto the belly of the model. Which way around does it go? This way, I think. So it fits in there, and originally I was going to put this hole a bit further forward, but then I looked and I saw that this grill here actually goes back into the model quite deeply, and if I'd have gone any further forward, when I drilled down, it would come through this grill. It would cut holes in this grill here. So you do have to go a little bit further back from that. The reason why I wanted to go further forward in the first place was because you had a deeper part of resin here to drill into, so that you can make the hole deeper. But I feel like there'll be enough once I've drilled down here and drilled a little bit into this part of the model. You're gonna get it's going to be fine, as long as about an inch will be fine, I think, to for the stick to hold. I did modify this part beforehand with some plastic hard to make it fit onto here a lot more tightly. It's just 1mm plastic hard pieces and some 0.5 millimeters on the side. And you can see that piece goes together here, and then I will have to drill down a little bit further, I think, to get it the right depth for the stick. But I'm quite happy how that's looking so far. Now, to drill the hole straight down was the scariest part. I didn't really have a good way to do it, because I don't have a drilling rig where you can put something in. So I had to create, the Leaky Cheese, he's drilled the hole whilst the model was together, whilst this part was part of the base set, which scares the well, it was quite scary. So what I wanted to do is drill the hole in this first and then put them together, and then drill a little bit further into the model. To do that, I needed to get this flat on something where it's stable enough to drill down in. So I made this rig. It's got I just bought a long batten of wood and put these 3 battens together. I think there was 6.5 millimeters, but you'll be able to gauge it by the width of this. And then I needed something for this to sit on so it's flat. So there's a small wooden batten on top, and then when I put that into the rig, I usually need to jam this down a little bit more card down the side to keep it completely still on this rig. But yeah, once it was in place, that's very stable, and it gave me a good base to drill down into this piece, which obviously I marked initially with and built up the hole. And then you need to buy, this is an 18mm hole. You can buy these 18mm drill bits that are actually cheaper than you'd think. For a big drill bit like this, you'd think it's expensive, but I think it was about a tenner. And yeah, the next worry for me is actually drilling the hole as straight as possible, which is, I couldn't find a way to rig any without having a drill rig. I couldn't find a way to around that to do it easily, to work out how to do it easy. I had to just go for it and try and get it as straight as possible. But what I did do is I drilled down a little bit and tried to keep it as straight as possible, and then I put the stick in to make sure it's on target. If it was going off target, you can always maneuver the drill to see if you can get it straighter. And then you just, as you go down a bit, you keep putting the stick in to make sure you're not too far off. And I think in the end it actually ended up it did quite well. It was quite straight, ended up quite straight in the end. It's very hard. It's a very tight fit, this bit, to get. I might have to use some lubricant to get it on, but it's got enough wiggle room that if it's a couple of millimeters out, to keep it very relatively flat. One way I checked the straightness afterwards was I set up on the same camera rig that I'm holding. It's just a mobile phone holder for the bed, but I set up a pendulum to a plumb line with just a needle and a thread, and held it up next to it to make sure that it's relatively straight on different sides, and there is enough wiggle room in the bar for it for you to move it around if it's just a little bit off. One thing with this plumb line is that the actual electrostatic from the bar tends to pull the rod towards it. But yeah, it's, it might not look straight on this camera, but I can guarantee, I've tested it. It's just that the thing's not holding it straight at the moment. So, but it is as straight as I wanted it. So that was the scariest bit. Now that I haven't pushed this all the way in, by the way. Now that I've done that hole, that is pretty much the hard part of the project done for me. Everything else, all the bending that needs to be done most of the bending that needs to be done has been done. There's some small bits, guns and stuff like that, and doors that needs a slight bit of adjusting to fit. But I can now go ahead and start putting the fuselage of the model together. Haven't worked out whether I'm going to set the wings up first before I put them in, because there's bits to go on the wings, so it's whether to do that first or do that afterwards. It might be best to do it afterwards, but I've got a few dry fitting things on that front. Where is it? These are pretty fine. These are where the rockets go. I'm going to do the magnets for them separately and then stick them on, but this is where the gun goes, and I'm going to work out the magnets, how to magnetize that first, and also the flaps. You can glue those in before you put the wing on, or after, it depends on what you want. But yeah, that's where we're at. Super happy to get this part done, and done reasonably well. It was the thing that was I think most people will find most intimidating if you do go down the flight stand rule, but you just have to basically go for it. Looking at it, I've got it pretty close to center. I think it's slightly heavy this side. It's not something that you're going to be looking at, or it's only if you've got OCD like me that you worry about being that exact. But it's yeah, good enough for to settle my OCD. So anyway, yeah, thanks for watching again, and yeah, we will see where we get to in part 6, where we're finally putting some bits of the fuselage together, probably. Yeah, so yeah, catch you a bit later, and yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.